You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey gang, today's guest is Liz Stokes, singer and guitarist for the Auckland, New Zealand band, the Beths. Liz and I break down their fan favorite song, Future Me Hates Me, from the 2018 album of the same name. Liz and I talked about the initial inspiration behind the track and how her original demo wound up evolving once it was brought to the rest of the band and guitarist Jonathan Pierce, who also produced the album. We touch on the fact that the New Zealand government has helped the Beths with financial support as part of their International Music Market Development Grant Program, and how this was integral for the band to initially tour outside of their homeland. And Liz couldn't have been kinder to me for messing up the lyrics to her song. I was convinced what I had written down was what she was singing. It's the Kiwi accent that threw me off, I swear. For all this and much more, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast.
I know from doing a little research that you and all the members were attending classes at the University of Auckland in New Zealand, where you're from, where you all studied jazz, which is very interesting. So you were studying jazz and decided to form a band together.
Yeah, kind of. Like I knew Ben and Jonathan, who are still in the band. Like Jonathan, we went to high school together, and even back then were playing in like our high school bands, I suppose. And same with Ben, who this is like real boring, but like I met him when I was at high school, but he was at university, but through his like version of high school like prog band or something like that. And yeah, so we all knew each other like ahead of time, but we all ended up studying at the University of Auckland. Yeah, the jazz program there is like really fun. It's you can't really be maybe a jazz. It's very hard to be just a professional jazz musician in New Zealand. It's quite small, so I feel like people study just kind of music, and then you end up playing just lots of different stuff.
And then you started out just releasing some EPs, and you were one of the 5 finalists for the 2018 Silver Scroll Awards in New Zealand, which is awarded by APRA, which is the Australasian Performing Rights Association. And much like Canada and I believe Australia, and I know New Zealand, you've received financial support. Basically, governments will give artists sometimes money to go out and tour, and they support live arts. That is very foreign to us Americans. Our government sits on their hands. They would never give us money to go out and tour. So I've always thought that is really cool. So I guess they funded 3 tours through marketing development grants. And I wish we had something like that here.
Yeah, it's pretty special. It's something that, I mean, especially this year, it's been really important, and like it's very validating. When you think about it, it makes sense. Like we're, as a country, we're extremely isolated. Like our closest neighbor is Australia, but even that's like a few hours flight away. But also we're a small country, so like you have to be a very, very huge artist to be able to like make a career just in New Zealand as a musician. So a lot of artists, or like a lot of businesses of like all kind, I think you start looking out almost immediately into and for musicians that means like thinking about whether touring internationally is an option. And we have things like Outward Sound is one of the funding bodies where they kind of help pay for international touring. Just because when you think about it, like to tour the States for us, it would cost like $10,000 for the 4 of us just for visas, and then the flights are probably another $10,000. Like,
yeah,
like it's not. We can't just jump in a van. So we're really lucky. Like I said, this year, I mean, with the way that the country shut down for a while, we're of course very lucky again that we've opened up, because we've eliminated it in the community. During that period of time, we were able to shut down because the government paid people to. You know, like we were able to get a subsidy throughout that period where everybody was staying home, and that kept us afloat for like a lot of the year last year.
Well, that's great. And to your point, there's only so many times you can tour Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch. You're not too big of a country. I've been to New Zealand. It's a beautiful place. Absolutely love playing there.
When did you come?
First time I was there was December 31st of 1998.
Whoa, New Year's.
Played the Warped Tour in Auckland back then.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know we had the Warped Tour. And
yes,
and
you were probably very young then, but anyhow, it was just always loved coming there. The last time we were there was in 2014. We came there with Pennywise and Alkaline Trio and played a show. So very, very beautiful place. So the band for 5 years, you were touring around, obviously, New Zealand, and I'm assuming you got to Australia. And I know that you did a European tour with Death Cab for Cutie. Have you toured the States at all?
Yes. So we first came over. I'm trying to think what the season is. I guess it was spring. Because it would have been autumn for us here, I think, or maybe just going into winter of 2018. So it was before our first album came out. And it was it started off as, like at the end of 2017, me and Jonathan were talking, and then the record was like kind of finished, Future Me Hates Me, and we were like, well, let's just do it. Let's just like book a DIY kind of like international tour, and we'll apply for some funding, and maybe we'll get it, and we'll just do it, and then we'll come back, and, we'll move out of our flats, and then come back and start again, and we didn't have to start again, which was good. Things kind of went pretty well. We ended up signing with Car Park, and we ended up just continuing to tour for most of that year. So we went to the States, I think, a couple of times, and to Europe a couple of times, and over to Australia, and just kind of all over, and kind of toured nonstop for like around 18 months or so, which was awesome.
Well, good for you, and it's testament to the buzz that you've been building up. Just it seems like every day more and more people are knowing about the band. The song we're going to talk about today is "Future Me Hates Me," which is from the album of the same title, your first full-length record, which was released on August 10th, 2018. Did Jonathan Pierce, your guitar player, did he produce this record? I know he produced your latest record.
Yeah, he did.
He did. He's amazing. It sounds so good. I thought for sure, I kept scouring. I was looking and looking. It wasn't on your Wikipedia page. I was like, who produced this record? And finally I saw it. Just from the sounds of it, I thought you worked with a big name producer. And I think there's big things ahead for Jonathan. The sounds are amazing on this track.
Oh, he's going to be chuffed. No, he's so great. Like he it's something that he's really proud of. And he's, like even on this new record, he's constantly learning about things and just, he's really excited about his microphones that he buys. He's really passionate about it, and we're so lucky to have him as part of the band. Like he's a real special person.
That's great that you recognize that, because he really is. The sounds are amazing. I'm trying to put my finger on the band's sound, and it's just, there's not one thing. You guys just have your own thing, but I'm hearing parts of Weezer. I'm hearing parts of the Breeders. I'm hearing parts of, do you remember Veruca Salt? I don't know if you remember them at all.
I know a couple songs, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing a little bit of the Cars. I'm hearing 70s stuff. I'm hearing 90s nuances, but it has its own flavor. And there's also and I'm careful of using this word, but there's a maturity to your songwriting. It seems like you've been around for 20 or 30 years with the maturity, and I mean that. It's just really, really well written and mature stuff. So I'd like to get into the song now. Set it up for us. Do you remember when you wrote it?
I do. I think it must have been in 2015. It's weird. Like I remember when I wrote like the scrolls that would become the song, like which is how I write a lot of lyrics, which is just kind of like free writing. Mm-hmm. Just 90% of it's garbage, But from there, then I'll like later go back when I'm like playing guitar or something and like kind of pull phrases or like ideas that I like, and then kind of like mold them, change the words around, make them rhyme better. It's exciting stuff. But yeah, I remember like when I kind of scribbled a bunch, and I think from that same kind of batch of scribbling, I wrote both Future Me Hates Me and Happy Unhappy, which are two songs on that first record. And it was just, I think, just getting home after hanging out with someone that I really liked, and it felt like something was going to happen, but then nothing happened. I just kind of like extremely dramatically, like closed the door and like put my back against it and just like slid down to the ground. It was just like, I was being very dramatic. I was trying to channel that, I think, a little bit. But then, I feel extremely self-conscious about that. And so I was kind of like, the only way it could turn into a song is if it was kind of like making fun of myself for being that dramatic.
I like it, and I can kind of tell that you, from your videos, that you can take a joke and kind of make fun of yourselves. Your videos are a lot of fun, and I can totally relate to that. My band is cut from the same cloth. We can laugh at ourselves, and I think that's very important. This song, did you know that there was something special there when you first wrote it, or was it just kind of another idea that you were formulating, or was it like there's really something here?
Yeah, I remember making like the first demo of it, which I kind of demoed just guitar and like vocals on Reaper. I think I knew it was good because like I was writing a lot of songs, and some of them I'd kind of finish them and be like, cool, it's finished. I'm not showing that one to anyone. It's no point. But with that one, I was like, cool, this is good enough that I sent it to the band and like sent it to some friends to be like, what do you think? And like at that point, I think I'd been writing for the band for maybe 2 or 3 years, and I kind of had reached the point where I kind of knew. I knew what I liked, and it took a lot of songs to kind of get to that point. But I was getting good at getting to that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So when you demo stuff and send it off, and of course with Jonathan being a producer, this song in particular, how much do you remember from the initial idea or the demo that you created when you sent it to the guys? How much it changed or evolved?
A lot. Like my demos are pretty basic. A lot of times they'll just be. Maybe this is coming from like the jazz background, where to me a lot of a song, when I'm writing it, it feels like it's the verse and the melody and the chords, which is like that's what you would have on a lead sheet, right? If you're reading like if you're playing Autumn Leaves or something, you'd be like, that's the song, and then you can kind of like arrange the song. And with some songs it's different. So for this one I did have the guitar riff was there, the main one, and like the voicings of the chords were there, but things were added in later. Like Jonathan added in the lead line that's in the introduction. And then like the drum feel and the bass part, like I don't really write those things. We kind of just arrange those together as a group. And then just little production things like that you do when you're working in the studio, and you're like, this section needs something. So that all came together.
Yeah, and I guess I was kind of speaking production stuff aside. Just I didn't know if when you write something like this is the song, these are my ideas, and this is what you present, or if it's like you said, more of a basic thing that goes through a metamorphosis that becomes what it becomes with all the production stuff and everything that you add on top of it. That's how I write. I'm amazed at people that just have this vision and do everything in their head and they spit it out. So I can totally relate to how you write. It's like, okay, here's the riff, here's the melody, here's the basic chords, and then you present it and you kind of all work on it together.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the lyrics is probably the one thing that I'm maybe a tyrant about. Like, not tyrant, but like I find it very hard to to collaborate on lyrics. They just feel so personal. I'll take some feedback with
so that's a struggle for you, and
yeah.
and that's totally that's understandable. When you're singing something, you have to feel it, and lyrics, when you write them, and you write all of them, they're coming from a personal place. So I totally get that. I'd like to jump into the song now. The song is 4 minutes and 7 seconds. It's got this amazing, great guitar hook when it starts off, and it just screams, it just feels 90s to me, but 90s happy, not 90s grunge and depressing music. It's just got this happy feel to it, and that guitar hook is just so catchy. Is that the one that you were referring to that you wrote initially?
Yeah. So that was like what I initially came up with and kind of wrote the verse over, if that makes sense, and then kind of stripped it back. Yeah.
So there's a 14-second intro of this part that's just so catchy, and then we get into the first verse. And the first part of the first verse, it just kind of breaks down to what I'm calling this kind of fuzz guitar, and the bass and drums are just grooving. And the lyric is, I never wanted to, I didn't want to fall. And Liz, you're going to have to help me with the second word's the only one I don't think I know here. Is it I won't or I don't believe?
Hang on, I'm trying to remember the lyrics to my own stupid song. I don't believe that love's a good idea.
I don't. I swear you say won't, which is kind of a cool lyric too. Okay, so I never wanted to. I didn't want to fall. I don't believe that love's a good idea at all. And then the back half of the verse, which I almost was going to call this a pre-chorus, until it happens again with different lyrics in the song, because the melody changes here. Oh, this well-designed world, everyone that I know is broken and has fell for it before. So set up this first verse for us lyrically.
Yeah, sure. It's well-designed. Whoa, everyone that I know is broken and has fell for it before. Which I know has fell for it is not grammatically correct, but it just sounded right.
Gotcha. Whoa. Okay, it was written as world here, but it's funny because later in the song at the refrain, I did have it written as whoa. So okay. I have to say one of my favorite artists, and I don't know if you're familiar, is American band The Pretenders, Chrissy Hynde, and then this part, that the melody line here is just haunting and beautiful. Oh, this well-designed woe, everyone that I know is broken and has fell for it before. It's just awesome. And then you come into what I call here a half re-intro. Was that something that you remember writing from the beginning? Like, okay, we're gonna do a verse, then we're gonna go to this half re-intro back into another verse, or was it longer, or was that written from the beginning, or something that evolved?
Yeah, I think the double verse thing is something that I do a lot, and I think it's from listening to a lot of like Death Cab for Cutie growing up. Just like this. And I know it's like it's a thing now, like in songs where you want to get to the chorus kind of within the first minute, and I just don't a lot of the time. I just can't justify it. It just feels like I haven't earned it yet. So I think I'm getting better at it now. But like for this song, the chorus doesn't come in for ages. There's like an intro, and then there's a verse, and then there's like an interlude, and then like another verse, and then quite a long pre-chorus, and then the chorus comes, and it's like a minute and a half into the song. I don't know. I really like that kind of, I don't know, it feels like you're telling a story during the verse, and sometimes it just feels like I'm not ready to go to that different place yet. Like you're still kind of exploring and like doing exposition, I guess, in those first couple of verses.
What is so cool about this song, the first time I heard the track, this part in particular, with the back half of the verse, the oh, this well-designed woe part, the first time I heard it and it came by, I wanted to hear it again. It's so catchy. But it's foreshadowing to come at the last chorus when it does come back again, and it doubles at the very end of the song. It kind of bites off that melody line, which is just, this song keeps evolving and growing, and the parts never get boring in this song. You know, you say the chorus doesn't come for a long time, but it works in this context of this song. It just works brilliantly because the parts just keep flipping. It never gets boring. And then I'm calling it a half re-intro. Then it comes back into verse number 2. And the lyric is, and sometimes I think I'm doing fine. I think I'm pretty smart. And on the I think I'm pretty smart line, here's something that only happens on this line of the song. There's this arpeggio guitar part, this picking part.
Sometimes I think I'm doing fine. I think I'm pretty smart.
It happens again during the what I'm calling the pre-choruses, but it just happened on that line, and I didn't pick up on it till probably the third or fourth listen. And it's just one of those production kind of ear candy things that stuck out to me. Was that something that you could attribute to Jonathan?
Oh yeah, that's a Jonathan line, and that's like a thing where when you're just arranging the song, I'm not. I think he was playing that because we played the song live maybe for like a year or so before we recorded it, and I think it's something that he just would have. You know, it makes sense if you're repeating the exact same kind of, the lyrics are different, but it's the same kind of form. He was just like, something needs to go here, and so he put something there, and it's a nice, and he's real good at writing those little just like sparkly ear candy bits. No,
and it's great because it's not there in the first verse, and I love that how you know that can really build a song, and it does so in this sense. The next lyric is, I'm quite convinced that I can keep myself up high. And then we get into what I'm calling the back half of the verse, and that I'm calling it a haunting melody. This melody is just, I can't get it out of my head. Oh, then the walls become thin, and somebody gets in. Everything's less, but it won't happen again. And then there's an extra line this time where you say it probably won't happen again. And those last two lines, the intro riff comes underneath those.
Somebody gets in, it's left.
And I'm thinking at that point, the first time I heard it, okay, now we're going to launch into a chorus, but it dips back down into the pre-chorus for the next part.
Yeah, there's a lot of bits. Oh man, I think that lyric is actually, I'm defenseless, not everything's less.
I'm defenseless. Yeah. Okay, well, see, I need to stop listening to the internet and Google when I search my lyrics. That's how I do this, and I do listen to the song, and I apologize for getting that.
Don't
that
apologize.
Lyric wrong.
It's kind of nice that someone's kind of gone through it and just like interpreted their own version. I kind of like that idea as well.
At least it's not your own bandmate telling you that your lyric's wrong. Then you'd have a problem with it.
yeah, beat him up. I'm just kidding. We would never do that. But our songs have a tendency, not all of them, but quite a lot of them, to be kind of like bitsy, I guess. Like you say, like there's like in that verse, there's like the first part of the verse, and then there's the second part of the verse, and then there's like there's a bit where there's the intro riff again. So like there's like lots of there can be quite a lot of different sections, which we really like, I guess. Quite often, sometimes we try to keep things more simple, but like it almost feels like you're like assembling a puzzle, and then it's quite satisfying to kind of like be remembering all these parts, and then like we're all like Jonathan and I like stepping on different pedals for every section while singing backing vocals at the same time and stuff. It feels almost like learning a dance or something. When you're physically playing it, it's nice to kind of like feel like a song is a puzzle that you're kind of putting together.
No, and there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, but it all, in my opinion, works perfectly together. And again, the pre-chorus, this part, that arpeggiated guitar that I was speaking of, the picking, comes back in, and it's just such a cool part. But everything kind of comes down here.
There's something about you. There's something about you. I wanna risk going through future heartbreak.
And the lyric is, but there's something about you. There's something about you. There's something about you I want to risk going through. You're opening up and being vulnerable. You want to risk the unknown, so to speak. Is that what you were going after with that lyric of the from a relationship standpoint?
Yeah. It's like a lot of the stuff I think, particularly on that record, it was kind of like balancing sincerity with like plausible deniability or something. Just being like, I have these feelings, but I mean, as a joke. And so like I feel like that section is kind of like a transitional section to this kind of like, it's a very almost like an optimistic kind of chorus that's whereas the verse is very like sarcastic or something, like I would never, it's stupid. And then the chorus, this kind of big optimistic chorus, and the pre-chorus is just introducing this idea that actually maybe it's not so bad. Real
quick, was the title Future Me Hates Me, did you have that from the beginning when you were penning the song, or was that something that came later, that lyric?
It's hard to remember. Like there's lots of like, I think, media all the time around the kind of idea of like, this is something that future me will deal with, or like I definitely wasn't like inventing that concept, but I think I had a lot of the lines, and they had a rhyme scheme that kind of like future heartbreaks, future headaches. I think I had kind of those words, and then future, it was kind of like ooh, a, and then I had future me hates me, and I was like, oh, there it is. Like, that's the kind of internal rhyme, and it also sums up the song quite well. I don't think it was the first thing that came in the song, but I think it just, once I had that line, I was like, that felt like the heart of it.
I love the lyric. It's and I hope I have all of these right. Future heartbreak, and here we are. We're at the first chorus, and you're right, Liz. It's about a minute and 20 into the track. Future heartbreak, future headaches, wide-eyed nights, late lying awake, with future cold shakes from stupid mistakes. Future me hates me for. And before we get into all those lyrics, there's a really cool. It's almost like a slide guitar part. Almost sounds like a pedal steel. If you know what I'm talking about in that chorus, was that, I'm assuming that's Jonathan. What was that, a slide he was using?
There's like a high. It's like no, but it's
it's
not a slide. It's just like a really bright. I think it's Jonathan's Les Paul.
Future cold shades from stupid mistakes. Future me hates me for.
I actually played that part live, but I think we recorded it on a few different guitars, but that was like one of the last things we added to that song. Like the song was kind of done, and we were just like, the chorus just, it feels like it's missing like a sparkle or something, like
Uh-huh.
and we added that, and we were like, oh, this is cheesy, but we couldn't stop smiling, so we were just like, oh, okay, well, it has to go in.
Sometimes you got to pour the cheese on, Liz, and this part is so good. I'm glad you left it, because it really,
Me too.
and it just takes me back. It takes me back to, and I want to ask real quick, did you have any 70s influences, or did your parents listen to music from the 70s or anything? Because when that guitar part comes in, it just takes me back to, I don't know, something like a Fleetwood Mac, or I mentioned the Pretenders. It just takes me back to that era, and it makes me feel good. I guess that's the only word to describe it. I love that part.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. We've all listened to so much stuff. Like I grew up listening to. My mom had like this radio station called Easy Listening Eye in the car, which I didn't know any of the artists, but like now a song will come on and I know it intimately. I'll be like, I know the song like the back of my hand, and it was all. And that, looking back, it was all like yacht rock and like kind of like a Billy Joel and Michael McDonald and also like 80s stuff like Spandau Ballet or something like that. It was all just kind of like easy listening songs from the 70s and 80s.
I know you've mentioned Death Cab, and I don't really hear them too much. I can't. What I think is fascinating about your band is I can't pinpoint one thing. It just keeps through, especially through this track. I just keep hearing different things that remind me of stuff, and it's really cool. So that's why I wanted to ask you about some of those influences. After the first chorus, we come back into a full band reintro, and before we talk about that, just these lyrics here, the future heartbreak, future headaches, that chorus, do you remember if you had that initially, or that was something that you kind of had to work on as being the hook and the chorus of the song?
Yeah, that was written. That was like, that stuff was part of the kind of like mishmash of like words on those kind of few pages, was this kind of like future things that were gonna go wrong. Some of them conveniently rhymed, so it was just kind of like all these different things that also rhyme. Rhyming's very important to me.
I know that you say you take some possession of your lyrics, but so when you're in the studio and these were just kind of like scat words you had in a notebook or whatever, but does Jonathan or anybody else ever say, hey, what about switching that line, or could there be a stronger line there? Do they say stuff like that, or is it kind of you come up with the lyrics in full?
Generally, I come up with lyrics. Like, if someone was like, I don't think this line is very strong, I'd look at it and I'd probably come up with something else. But it's usually when the demo is done, the lyrics are done, if that makes sense. But like, I'll continue tweaking them sometimes, but because to me that's a big part of the song being kind of done. Apart from like middle eights, to me, quite often a song is done when there's like the verses and the choruses are done, and then I'm like, we'll put something in the middle, we'll do a solo. I hate writing bridges.
You do.
Hey there, I am Johnny Christ from Avenged Sevenfold, and I've got a podcast called Drinks with Johnny you're going to want to check out. I sit down with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, from professional wrestlers to actors, comedians, fighters, musicians, everything in between. I'm just looking to make some friends and have a good time doing it. So if that sounds like something you're into, go check out Drinks with Johnny, streaming everywhere now.
That's funny. Most of the people I've had on the show enjoy writing bridges. You're one of the. I don't think I've had anybody say they don't like writing bridges. That's interesting. Tell me a little bit about that.
I guess to me, like this, it's so functional. It's like this is, to me, it's like, well, because I write songs in a very I feel like old fashioned way or something, where there's a verse and then a chorus and then a second verse and then a chorus and then there needs to be something else so you can have another chorus or something like that. I really like songs in that kind of like classic like structure, and that's not how all the songs I write come out, but like quite often it is how they come out, and I'm just like, I'll finish most of the song and just like I just can't. By that point I'm kind of excited about the song and I want to kind of share it, but I'm like, oh, there needs to be something else here. And so like sometimes it's really fun to come up with something, and that's why in this song and also in like Happy Unhappy, the other thing is that I write a lot of words, and so quite often by that point I'm like, ugh, there's too many words in this song already. Like I write really lyric heavy songs, and so I'm like, do I want to write like an entire bunch more words? And I'm like, no, so it probably needs to be like either an instrumental section or like just a backing vocal arrangement. So in this song, for instance, it's a backing vocal arrangement.
So you took the words out of my mouth, which we'll get to the bridge in this song, which doesn't have vocals, which has some vocals, but doesn't have lyrics per se, which I think is important. I think it lets it breathe there, which is really good. There's a full band reintro after chorus 1, which this is now the third time you've heard the hook. You heard it at the top of the song. You heard the half reintro after verse 1. Now you're hearing it again, and then we go into verse 3. You don't go into a bridge or anything. You're back into another verse, and the lyric is, "It's getting dangerous. I could get hurt, I know. I counted up the cons, they far outweigh the pros. Oh, and if word gets you down, it's the mob or a sound, I am drowning. It's too late for me now, I need you sticking around." And you're smiling, so I'm assuming I messed up a lyric.
Oh, you didn't mess it up. So the third line is, oh, and the floodgates are down, it's the Marlborough sounds. So the floodgates are down, it's obvious.
Oh, it's the okay, well, it's funny because I got that lyric at the end of the song where it comes back. It's the Marlborough. Is Marlborough a place in New Zealand?
Marlborough, yeah. It's like a place at the top of the South Island. It's basically the sounds. It's like fjords.
Gotcha.
It's just like a local wet landmark. That rhymed.
Liz, I've never messed up lyrics like I've messed up your song. I'm gonna own it right now. This is you've got me good, and I'm gonna blame it on the lovely Kiwi accent. Okay, I'm not gonna take full blame.
Oh, please stop apologizing. It's fine. I'm enjoying. I'm trying to remember them.
No, I know, and it's weird. I've had people tell me it's weird to have me speak their lyrics back to them. Like, wait, is that what I said there?
I know it's difficult.
I love the second half of this where you say, "I am drowning." On this, the melody changes on that one word, on the word drowning, from the other times you sing this part. Do you remember that? Do you remember you changing that, or Jonathan or someone in the studio suggesting there be a change there?
No, I think phrasing is something that's quite important to me. I think that the way that words feel when they're coming out of your mouth and the way that they sound, I feel like is really important. It's something that when I'm writing, the way that the words sound is like part of what I'm writing, if that makes sense. So like the particular phrasing is quite important. So like, yeah, like more important than like having the exact same melody is making that particular line sound compelling and sound, to me, also like kind of sound natural or unnatural in a memorable way.
Yeah, that one word and what you did there, it stuck out to me. I think that's a really, really cool part of the song. I love it.
Thanks.
I'm getting to pre-chorus number 2, which is the same lyric as pre-chorus 1, because there's something about you. There's something about you. There's something about you I want to risk going through. On this pre-chorus, though, there's either some organ pads pushed way back in the mix or like a low register violin or strings. Is that there? Is that what I'm hearing?
You're hearing it, and it is just like a low fuzzy guitar.
There's something about you. There's something about you. I wanna risk going through a future heartbreak.
Wow, it sounded like strings or like a low violin, like pushed back with some reverb on it. But that's a guitar. It's a really, really interesting, and it adds to that part. And of course, I had to go back and listen to pre-chorus 1, and nope, it's not there. That is just another one of those little cool production qualities that I think is really, really neat. The second chorus is the first time that it's a double chorus. And this is where the song really, as if it wasn't already interesting and took you on this little ride, it gets pretty intense now, just in terms of production and the different parts that come in. The first half of the chorus is the same: future heartbreak, future headaches, wide-eyed nights, late lying awake, with future cold shakes from stupid mistakes. Future me hates me. And then it does a turnaround, future heartbreak, future headaches, and then there's the woo-oo-oos, the backing vocals.
Hates me. Future heartbreak, future headaches, wide-eyed nights, late lying awake, with future cold shakes and stupid mistakes. Future me hates me for.
And and just adds such a great part to that. Whose idea was that? Do you remember who came up with that part?
I think that was a studio edition. I think so. In the year that we were playing this live, I think that particular line wasn't there. But I think when we recorded it, we were like, yeah, there needs to be something in the second half of that second chorus. And it's the only time in the song that happens because the three choruses at the end are slightly different. So it was kind of like, is it worth making a backing vocal line just for this one part? And we decided it was. And backing vocals are like, they're very present in our music throughout all of it. So it wasn't like it was strange to put them in there. It was almost like we have this other thing, like we have this third guitarist, and the third guitarist needs a part to play in the song, but for us the third guitarist is our kind of backing vocal arrangement. It's like we have two guitars, we have bass and drums, and then we have backing vocals in it. When you're quite limited, I guess, in the different instruments that you can play, particularly live, having this extra texture that you can throw in to have an extra melodic part or to kind of change the texture of a particular section is really important to us. So line, maybe Jonathan came up with it.
You use the word I was going to use, is texture, because near the end here, you can really start hearing the male voices. Predominantly sounds like you doing a lot of the backups and hearing your higher register, and then you can hear the male voices come in at the end, which is just so cool with how it's playing off of you. And it goes into what I'm calling the bridge. It's a 12-second bridge, instrumental, but there are 4 woo-oos here. But there's a counter melody with some ba-ba-ba-bas happening there, which really work cool together. Do you remember how that was? That another studio thing that came about?
So that one we would have had to. We were doing that when we were playing it live, when we were learning the song, like a year before we recorded it, and that was like, I think for a long time we just played the because it's the pre-chorus chords.
Yes. Yes.
4 and the 5. Is it? Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's like is it C minor to D minor? I played it earlier.
Something like that, yeah. Anyway, but, yeah, so it's like that, just repeating the pre-chorus chords, which is something I've done before in bridges as like almost as a placeholder. And then I was like, everyone was like, we need to put something here. So I went away and I just like wrote a 4-part thing where like Ben and I do the woos, and then Jonathan and Tristan do the kind of counter melody line that kind of ends up together at the end. It's very ba-ba-ba-y, which like after I wrote it was like, oh damn it, that's like a postal service thing. Oh well.
No, that part's great, and that's really where you hear you hear the male voices going back and forth. I'm calling it a counter melody, and that part's just so cool, and I think it's needed. There's a lot of lyrical content up to this point. It's only 12 seconds. But it's perfect to set up the third chorus. And when the third chorus comes in, the band breaks down for the first time. It's just, the future heartbreak, future headaches. There's a couple of cymbal hits. And then the kick drum comes in for the second line, wide-eyed nights, late lying awake. And then there's like a light snare build up on the third line. Do the back half of the third chorus, or what I'm considering an outro, and here's where I think I might have gotten the lyrics finally right. I did write Marlboro here, where I had that wrong before. This part's really cool because now it's a complete counter melody, and it took me so many times listening to this, Liz, to figure out what part I want to listen to, and now I can kind of equally listen to them both. There's a lot going on here, but it works together in such a congruent fashion. So tell us what the thought was here of having it, and I'm going to read the lyrics real quick, and I'll have you set it up. Again, you're saying future heartbreak, future headaches. You're repeating the chorus, but behind it, I'm hearing. And I don't know if you're doing it. It sounds more like it might be Ben or Jonathan singing this part. And correct me if I'm wrong with the lyrics, but the floodgates are down. Mm-hmm. It's the Marlboro sounds.
Marlboro sounds, yep.
Walls become thin and somebody gets in. It's a well-designed woe. Everyone that I know is broken.
Yeah.
And it's biting off the back half of the verses melody that I wanted to hear repeated, but only happens, I'm saying once in each time. And now you're getting it because this part happens twice behind the chorus.
Future heartbreaks, future headaches, fight on nights they lying awake. Future conscious, making mistakes. Future me hates me. Future heartbreaks, future
Whose idea was it for to have that melody come back?
I think it was mine. Yeah, I think that was in the original demo that I made myself on the computer at home and sent it out. That was really fun. Just kind of discovering that line. I was like, something needs to happen here in these last couple choruses, and just figuring out that last line fits, and then kind of like, so taking the third verse one, and then going back to the second verse one, and then back to the first verse one, and being like, oh, it kind of tells a story when it's like you're telling a story, which in reverse of the song, but it still makes sense, and you get to finish on that line, everyone that I know is broken, which is like a weirdly depressing line to finish on, but I kind of like that. And it actually only happened once, but then when we played it together live, learning the song, we decided it needed one more round, and I stopped singing the main chorus melody last time through, and the boys just keep singing that part, and then that's when the song finishes on that depressing note.
I love it, and I have a term for it. I've heard in the studio over the years that at the end of a song, a lot of times we call it throwing in the kitchen sink, or it's a train wreck. And this this is, if I've ever seen one or heard one, a classic train. And sometimes a train wreck or a kitchen sink does not work, and this just. It is so cool. And like I said, it took me so many listens to figure. At first I was like, well, the chorus is still going over here, but yet there's this new melody. But wait, that's not new. That's the back half of the verses. It's a really, really well thought out and well written part. It's really, really great. I love
Thanks.
that the lyric ends on everyone that I know is broken. And it ends on what I like to call the suspense chord. It ends on the E. It never resolves back to the B.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty smart.
I love that. Did you ever resolve back to the B, or ever tie it up, or you wanted it to be left? I call it the suspense chord.
No, it felt good. It felt good leaving it there. I'm a big fan of it. I think I end a lot of songs on the 4 like that. Maybe too many. Feels good.
I like to do that too. So the song's written. You're in the studio. Jonathan's producing. The song's done, and you hear it back. Did it exceed your expectations from those first demos and those first scrawls on paper, or when it was finally recorded, were you like, there's really something here? Were you happy with it?
It took quite a lot of finessing. This one, like, because it's so bitsy and because there's so many different like guitar sounds in it and stuff, it took quite a lot of tweaking to get it really working. But once we had it working, I think it felt great, and we got the song working at a similar time to like maybe Happy Unhappy, and I think You Wouldn't Like Me, and maybe one more song, and those were the first kind of 4 songs that we started kind of sending out to people before the album was done mixing. Yeah, and it was strange because like I said, like we were playing before the record came out in 2018. All of those songs we were playing live, except for maybe River Run. Yeah, it was nice to kind of like feel very comfortable with those songs, and then finally hear them in a like polished, sparkling form, which in the most recent record that we made, we hadn't played most of those songs live. And so the first version that you kind of get used to is the one on the recording. So it was a nice feeling.
Do you recall if there was a difference prior to it being recorded when you would play it and your audience heard it, and now it's recorded and they've been able to digest it and hear it, recorded? Do you remember the first time you played it after it was released and what the response was?
Wow. First time after it was released would have been, I guess it didn't get released until we had already started touring. When we first toured overseas, we only had our EP out. But like the thing is, like we played in Auckland and like maybe around the rest of New Zealand. We played those songs in Auckland, like hundreds of times probably.
Yeah.
So like we would play them to songs of our friends who already knew, like all the words just from coming to the gigs. So
So they already loved him.
yeah, so I'm not sure. Yeah, it felt crazy just like being overseas and then kind of like playing songs to people who'd never heard of us before, and then suddenly the album kind of came out and suddenly people did know the lyrics. I mean, that's pretty wild and really, really special. Something we really miss. So
Yeah, well, you deserve it. Your band is a wealth of talent. The songs are great, and I really appreciate you coming on today and taking the time out to talk to us. And I'd like you to leave the listeners with anything coming up with the Beths that you'd like to promote.
Just lots of international touring. I am kidding. Yeah, I don't know. We released our new record in July this year. It's called Jump Rope Gazers, and this year. Sorry, it was in 2020. Sorry, the eternal year. And it's it's still out. We decided to leave it out. Yeah, I mean, have a listen to that if you want. I don't know. We're working on new stuff, so I'm just writing a lot.
Well, sounds good. We'll keep writing, keep doing your thing, and congratulations on all your success and your continued success. I wish you nothing but the absolute best. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's been real nice getting real deep into Future Me Hates Me, the song.
The number you have reached is 100.7 WMMS.
It wasn't just a radio station, it was a lifestyle.
Cleveland is a rock and roll city for sure.
Yeah! Down! The Wrath of the Buzzard. WMMS. Cleveland.
The rise and fall of one of the most iconic radio stations in America. Profiles, The Wrath of the Buzzard, PROH Files. Subscribe now wherever you get podcasts.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a Podcast, all you have to do is submit your song and bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured band is Plastic from North London. You got Chris Limpert on guitar and vocals, Jack Watley on the drums, and Greg Powell's on the bass. I love these guys' sound. You can find their music on all the streaming services, and you can find them online on Instagram and Facebook. Here's a snippet of their song, Bled.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
So I've been personally excited, just as I know your bandmate Roger Lima was excited about this Beths episode for a long time, having Liz on, just because I'm such a giant fan of this band. And to even narrow it down to just Future Me Hates Me, which I love this song, but I love both of their full lengths front to back. And no pun intended, but I've been stoked about this episode for quite a while.
Yeah, Roger has been a proponent of this band for some time now. He keeps talking about the Beths, and finally I checked them out, and then I told you about them, and it's just been kind of an avalanche. I wanted to ask her, and at some point I was almost there, and I didn't really know how to do it. I wanted to ask her how old she was. I researched it. I couldn't find out her age, and that should be here nor there, but I just am fascinated. I said it in the episode. There's a maturity to her songwriting that just, it sounds like, they've been a band for 30 years. Someone in their early 20s just typically doesn't write this in depth, and this there's just so many moving parts to this song in particular that all work so well together.
There's elements of the Beths that seem like they're from our world, and by our world I mean like kind of the punk rock world. Whether it's the guitar tones, some of the melodies, but there's also elements that are from the indie rock world. And then, like you said in the episode, there's elements of like 70s influence. Chrissy Hind is a great comparison of someone that I would sort of pair it to, like the Pretenders. There's elements of 90s. I don't even know. I don't know what this amalgamation of influence is. And yeah, they went to school together and were studying jazz. So makes sense of that. I don't really know how to, but I do know that their music is very interesting to me. I never get bored listening to it. And I think that's why I love listening to their albums front to back.
Yeah, can consider me a fan. They're great songwriters, and I think that people are going to be hearing a lot about them. As Liz said, that they want to get back out and tour. I think that this is a band that just needs to get in front of people. They just need to go do their thing. And I love, and it's such the Kiwi way. The folks from New Zealand, people from New Zealand, they have such a great sense of humor. And when you see their videos, they just, they can laugh at themselves and have fun. And they're just a fun band.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't checked out the music videos from the Beths, they're amazing. They're so good. And yeah, you see the sense of humor come through. You see a little bit of that self-deprecating, which even she got into a little bit of that talking about this song. She was talking about liking someone, but there being this plausible deniability. I made a note when she said that because in a way it's like a song being like, I like you, but I'm just joking about that. And like that picture of her just shutting the door to her room and kind of like slinking down against the wall. And it's funny because hearing you talk to her, I think a lot of times the guests that we have on this show have very big personalities. Maybe a lot of people that are used to having conversations about songs and music and done a ton of podcasts and things like that. I think maybe you and I fall into that category probably. But I feel like Liz comes across as being just as humble as her music and lyrics make her seem. Like the person and the music just mesh and make sense to me together.
It's a perfect match. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, at least the impression I got from that conversation.
Yeah, it's like a purity, like there's an honesty behind the music, right. And that's what you get with her. If she was just like I don't know, just yo, what's up, man? That just wouldn't have matched what it was, and you just get that honesty. I love the lyrics to this song, and one line that really sticks out. It's in that pre-chorus. There's something about you I want to risk going through, and I mean, haven't we all felt that? It's that vulnerability that we have. It could be even in a business relationship or a friend relationship, but more than not, it's in a love relationship of, man, I really feel something here, but I don't know. Maybe I got out of a bad breakup or a bad relationship, and where the hell is this headed? But you know what? I'm going to risk it because, I don't know.
I think a lot about that feeling. And Chris, I don't know if you ever felt this feeling after you wrote a song and released it and you wrote it about somebody, and then finding out that they heard the song and it's someone that maybe you just liked, but not someone you were necessarily dating, especially when you're younger and you do that. It's such a weird feeling, and it's, vulnerable, I guess, is the right word for it, but it makes you feel very uncomfortable. So I don't know if you've ever had that experience. I know a lot of people we've had as guests on this podcast have.
I have had the experience with the song "Jen Doesn't Like Me Anymore," and that's that. We'll save that for another episode.
Okay.
There's a pretty crazy story behind that one. It's really funny, actually. And now that so much time has gone by, it's something we'll get into at some point. But yeah, I really admire. Again, I know Canada does this. I believe Australia, but New Zealand, they give their artists, the government, it's funded to support the arts and support music. They will give them money to go out and tour. They will give them money to go overseas. And I think that is just beautiful. I would love to see some type of legislation or something to come into the States for something like that for younger bands.
Right. And like Liz said in the episode, just for the visas alone, it could be like 10 grand for your band to go, not to mention the plane tickets and on top of all the normal expenses that we have to deal with even living in the States and just jumping in a van and going like that. I was thinking about that a lot, thinking about being in New Zealand. And I mean, I'm sure it's awesome playing in New Zealand, but anywhere else you want to go. We have the I call it luxury. Maybe it's not always luxury, but we can hop in a vehicle if we have access to one and go play a show. You know, we could stuff stuff in a car if we have to and go play a show 8 hours away if it's that important to us. But if you're in New Zealand, you don't have that option.
Well, like I said, there's only a couple cities to play in New Zealand, and once you exhaust those, you have to either go to Australia, which is, you know, still a 3-hour flight away to go play. But yeah, I've had people ask me, what's that flight like to New Zealand? You know, I'm like, well, from, you know, West Coast from LA, you basically see that chair over there? Go sit over there, and every 3 hours I'll bring you a piss warm Coke, and sit there for 15 hours. And in 15 hours, I'll tell you to get up. We'll be in Auckland. It's
right.
It's a long flight. So yeah, again, it's cool that they can get some help from the government to get places, and hopefully they'll be back out there touring sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive also that a band from New Zealand, I feel lucky for myself that I was able to hear them, and maybe part of that is New Zealand itself helping a little bit, helping get them into our ears. And, and I've seen great articles and reviews from publications like Rolling Stone and the like that have rained praise upon the Beths, and I think it is well-deserved.
Absolutely.
You know who I'd like to rain praise upon, Chris?
Who is that?
The listeners of our podcast who are so generous and donate each month to ChrisDeMakesADifference.com.
They are generous. Without you, we could not do this, as most of you know that are regular listeners. And for those that don't know, we do a fundraiser here each month, and this month's fundraiser is the Superhero Center for Autism, which is a nonprofit organization in the Rockford, Illinois area, offering support, education, and resources for individuals with autism and other special needs and their families. So please head over to ChrisDeMakesADifference.com and donate whatever you can. We'd really appreciate it. This is a wonderful organization.
Yeah, for sure. Like I always say, if you can chip in $1 or $2 or $5 or $10 or whatever you can afford, it all adds up, especially because there are a lot of you listening to the podcast now, and I'm not trying to brag. I mean, I know you guys are tuning in partially because our guests are so good, but, we got to take a little bit of credit for this. We're pretty psyched. I can't lie. We're pretty psyched about the stats and numbers of our podcast lately because they've been kind of, to us anyway, pretty mind-boggling how many people are tuning in each week. And I won't lie, when it's Monday and a new episode comes out, I'm always texting Chris updates of like, dude, blank number of people have listened to the podcast already today. That's exciting. I want to say thank you to everybody for that, too, just for listening. That's nice.
Right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for jumping in on our Facebook group, the Chris DeMakes a Podcast Facebook group. Please join. And it's a good time in there. We're always, Chris is in there posing questions, and we're doing different polls, and we're finding out who you want to be guests on the show. And it's just a lot of fun. So if you haven't already, please join that group. And if you'd like to advertise on Chris DeMakes a Podcast, shoot an email to advertising@soundtalentmedia.com, and we'll get you all the info on how you can advertise pretty much whatever you'd like to on our show. Again, that email address is advertising@soundtalentmedia.com.
I can't wait to hear what we get advertisements about on our podcast, because I know that we have some wild fans out there who are going to, I think that there's probably some fan of the podcast out there who just has a lot of money and wants to just advertise themselves or something. Like, I think that that's probably a possibility, judging by the people that I talk to in our group and stuff. So if you want to support the podcast, hey, that goes a long way. Advertising, we do put a lot of hours into this and stuff, and we do have some expenses and things like that. So that definitely helps. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, you'd think that maybe the advertisements would be, music or music product, business-related centric, but who knows? Maybe we'll get someone advertising their grandma's fruitcake recipe for the holidays. You just never know.
You don't know, man. And either way, I think that this is a great place to advertise, and we know that advertising works because we advertise our own things on our own podcast, and it works. So, hit up, what's that email address again? Oh, it's advertising@soundtalentmedia.com if you're interested in rates and stuff.
You got it.
Cool.
You got it. And if you haven't already, give me a follow on Instagram. I want you to follow me. I promise to be somewhat funny. That's at Less Than Chris D. Give me a follow. Instagram, Less Than Chris D. And I want to thank this week's guest, Liz Stokes from the Beths, for another awesome episode. We'll see you next week.
The number you have reached is 100.7 WMMS.
It wasn't just a radio station, it was a lifestyle.
Cleveland is a rock and roll city for sure.
Get down! The Wrath of the Buzzard. WMMS. Cleveland.
The rise and fall of one of the most iconic radio stations in America. Profiles, The Wrath of the Buzzard. PROH Files. Subscribe now wherever you get podcasts.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rock NBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media podcast network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.